A power structure is collapsing. But here's the thing. The warnings, they're not coming from its enemies. Nope, they're coming from inside. Loyalty is starting to look desperate. The attacks are getting messy, and the ground beneath the throne is cracking right open.
It all starts with this number, -38%. Now, what is that? That's Donald Trump's approval rating. And to really get what that means, no president in modern history has ever seen their approval drop this far, this fast. This isn't just a dip, It's not a wobble, this is a collapse. And that number, it gives permission for everything that's about to happen next.
Now this is not what the opposition does. This is a Republican Senator Tom Tillis absolutely tearing into the administration in broad daylight. I mean, he's saying it right on camera for the whole world to see. This isn't just some political hit job. It's a signal of a deep, deep fracture inside the ruling party itself. This is what survival looks like.
And then there's this. Listen to the finality, the dead-end feeling in these words from Lisa Murkowski. She doesn't say she's concerned. She's not wavering. She says she has lost confidence. You have to understand, in the brutal world of power politics, lost isn't just a word. It's a signal flare. It's a flare that says the end is coming.
So here's the crucial takeaway. The most dangerous signals that a power structure is failing, they're never what you think they are. They come from this weird behavior inside the ruling group. You see these public fractures, this sudden finger-pointing, and this desperate, almost fanatical loyalty. Look, these aren't just random events. They're the telltale signs that the grip on power is slipping. Power has rules. I mean, they're ancient, they're unbreakable. And yeah, for a while, a ruler can act like they can defy them. But what happens when the people in charge start to believe they're truly above those rules? Well, that is the most dangerous stage of all. It's that moment when your allies suddenly become liabilities, and everyone stops asking, how do we win? And they start asking, how do I survive?
This gets us to a core problem, right? In the world of power, what people believe is true is almost always more important than what's actually true. Donald Trump's power, it was built on this perception of total dominance, this belief that if you defied him, you'd be punished. Well, that belief, it's evaporating. And once you lose that perception, the only tool you have left is raw force. And the moment that force becomes visible, you've shown your hand. It's a fatal sign of weakness.
So the regime isn't just bending the rules anymore, it's shattering the very foundations of power. Let's look at Law 1. You let a subordinate like Stephen Miller get blamed in public? Well, the master looks weak. Then Law 15. You fail to totally crush your enemies inside the gates? The regime looks vulnerable. And Law 19. You misjudge your own allies, your own party? You look foolish. Every single broken law is another crack in the foundation.
And this is what happens next. Authority just isn't feared anymore. You have Republican Senator Tom Tillis publicly mocking cabinet secretaries like Kristi Noem and advisors like Stephen Miller. He's not just disagreeing with them, he is ridiculing them. And that only happens when the fear of what comes next is completely gone. In pretty much every historical collapse, the ruling party fractures. It never happens all at once. It always splits into three predictable camps. And what's wild is that right now we are watching all three of these camps form at the exact same time. Okay, so here they are. First, you've got the defectors, like Lisa Murkowski, who are very carefully creating distance. Then you have the attackers, like Tom Tillis, who are loudly blaming insiders like Stephen Miller and Kristi Noem to save their own skin. And finally, you get the fanatics, people like Vivek Ramaswamy, who just deny reality itself. See, a regime doesn't fall because of an attack from the outside. It falls when its own people can't even agree on what is real anymore.
And that right there, that's the point of no return. This has stopped being a debate about policy. It's a fight over what's real. And that gap, that chasm between the fanatics in denial and the defectors quietly escaping, that's exactly where the danger speeds up and becomes a full-blown collapse.
When leaders feel their power slipping away, but they refuse to admit it, they overcorrect. They try to look stronger, tougher, more in control than ever. It's this desperate psychological game. But what they're really showing everyone is their own insecurity. And that fear, it starts to leak out in everything they do. You can see the shift plain as day right here. Confident power, it persuades. Fearful power, it enforces. Confident power builds alliances. Fearful power just points fingers and blames. The entire focus of the administration is shifting right before our eyes from persuasion to enforcement. And that is a classic, textbook sign that its legitimacy is bleeding out. And what does it actually look like? Well, it looks like this. It's when agencies like ICE become almost performatively aggressive. Their actions get louder, more visible. It's the raid that has no real purpose except to be seen, the arrest that's designed for the cameras. This is not a display of strength. This is institutional fear wearing a uniform.
So, what are senators like Tom Tillis and Lisa Murkowski really doing here? They're following a very old rule of power. Law 26, keep your hands clean. These public statements, they aren't for Donald Trump. They're receipts. Receipts for history. They're creating a public record to protect themselves for a future where the story gets rewritten and they need to prove they were on the right side.
But this shows you the other side of the coin. It really explains the behavior of loyalists, like Vivek Ramaswamy. For them, admitting failure is just not an option. Why? Because their entire identity is fused, it's welded to the ruler. To adapt would mean losing a piece of themselves, so they choose the illusion. They choose it even over their own political survival.
So where does all this go? The future looks brutal, and it's totally unresolved. There are basically 3 potential paths forward from here, and guess what? None of them are stable, and more importantly, none of them are fully under Donald Trump's control anymore.
Okay, path 1 is force. The regime just doubles down. Agencies like ICE expand their operations. Federal authority gets asserted aggressively everywhere. And what happens? Governors resist. The entire country polarizes into this brittle, high-stakes standoff.
Path 2 is retreat. Sacrifices have to be made. People like Stephen Miller and Kristi Noem are thrown overboard to relieve the pressure. The center might survive for a little while, but it's hollowed out, it's weakened, it's bleeding influence. The throne is still there, sure, but the kingdom around it is emptying out.
And the third path? Fragmentation. The party just breaks apart, openly. The loyalists become even more radicalized. The defectors go off and form new alliances. And Donald Trump? He's left isolated. Still loud, of course, but with no real power, leaving nothing but chaos behind.
And this is the most important thing to realize right now. The game has changed. This isn't about winning or losing an election anymore. The question is now much more primitive, much more fundamental. Can Donald Trump still command obedience? Because once that breaks, everything else follows.
These are the textbook warnings, the warnings of a collapse that's already happening. You've got the public fractures, the elite defections, the fanatical denial from loyalists, the escalating use of force, the shrinking legitimacy. These are not just random events. This is the checklist of a system that is breaking down.
But listen, this isn't the end. We're in the unstable middle, and history shows us time and again that this is the most dangerous phase. It's not the collapse itself, but that moment right before it becomes undeniable to everyone. This is when cornered leaders make their absolute worst, most desperate decisions. And that leaves us with a really unsettling question. See, the real issue isn't what Donald Trump is going to do next. It's whether anyone around him has any idea how to stop what comes after. Which one of these roads to ruin are we already on? And how close are we to a point where turning back is just impossible? The throne might be brittle, but the shockwaves from its collapse, they could be felt for generations.